Good morning everybody, and thank you for coming to our Climate Action Community Fridge cooking demonstration. The thinking behind the event was that we get an eclectic mix of food donated from our local supermarkets, and thought a few recipe ideas from an expert would be very useful. Unfortunately, we couldn't find an expert, so we have Theo from Roasted. Our team of volunteers give up their free time to collect and distribute this food, and without them there would be no community fridge project. So could we have a round of applause for the volunteers? And without delay, I'll hand you over to the main man. Thank you for coming.
Good morning everybody, hope everybody's well. I promise not to swear much, maybe a couple of swear words here and there. I've been working really closely with Mick from the Community Fridge, as well as Loaves and Fishes and other sort of charities, in trying to sort of get the message across how to best utilise the products that you get there. Now, some days that's inundated with an amazing array of produce, other days you have slim pickings. And when I refer to slim pickings, this morning I came along and I was given the Pepsi challenge, how to turn Coke into Pepsi and vice versa. But it was basically spring onions, radishes, asparagus tips and tofu, because some genius has requested tofu. So I'm going to assemble that in a little bit. But what I did, I came along yesterday and I had a look, and I took some sausages away, I took a packet of diced stew away and thawed it out from the freezer. It's about being smart and utilising the things. Now, believe it or not, that one little pack of diced beef, a packet of short crust pastry that was in the freezer, I turned into that. Okay, now this would comfortably feed 4 people, along with some potatoes that are over there, or carrots that you can get. So in effect, the whole thing has actually cost you nothing. The only thing that I've added to this is some gravy mix, just to act as a little bit of a binder. Okay, and when you cut into it, this is why I was late, because this was in the oven cooking. And when you cut into it, it's a little steak galette. So it's about taking an ingredient and thinking outside the box and sort of going, well, how do I do this? Now that was literally one of the small packets of diced beef. This morning I fried it off with some onion, some salt. I didn't get fancy, some water. I put it in the oven until it was nice and soft. I thickened it with some gravy mix. Gravy mix is underused. It's one of these staples that everybody has in their cupboard. It's how do you use it and how do you use it best. Don't go crazy with it, because it is very, very heavily seasoned a lot of the times. But a little bit, and that's what you've got. Okay, so that was one of the things. Now that was, everything was from there, apart from the half an onion that I put in there and the gravy mix. The next 2 dishes that I did, and that was the packet of short crust pastry. So you could use puff pastry. You're not restricted. It's just a case of whatever the fridge has got, and don't be shy. The next thing I did was a toad in the hole. So there was a packet of chipolatas there. Alison was quite adamant, what were you going to do with these? So I turned that into two dishes. So baked beans, 10 baked beans from your food parcel box, sausages on top, fried egg, potatoes. You can go anywhere, chuck it on a roll. Again, now, stale bread, I'll just jump really quickly to this for a second. See, when the bread is left there, it's not, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not, it's good, but it's not at its best. Okay, it's not as it was 3 days ago when it was produced. Okay, the simplest and easiest technique to bring that back to life, sprinkle it with water, chuck it in your oven, 180 degrees, 7 minutes, pull it out, and you've got the freshest of fresh breads. It'll be a little bit crustier than a morning roll normally is, but that goes for that, that goes for that. Fry an egg, bit of ham, chuck it on the roll. Happy days. 4 eggs, 4 rolls, that's 4 people fed for breakfast and lunch. And the cost of an egg at the moment, I think I'm paying about 50 pence an egg. So for £2, you're fed 4 people. So don't dismiss the bread. The bread's great. bread and butter pudding, breadcrumbs, sprinkled on top of fish. So we did an event on Saturday. We basically got stale bread, some fresh parsley, blitzed it up, sprinkled it on top of the cod, baked it in the oven, and served it with a butter sauce. So I'm sure that at some point in time there'll be fish or something of that effect.
We quite often get fish and we get absolutely loads of bread. That's the one thing that we rely on is bread.
But I mean, bread's great for a snack. Toast it up, butter it, jam. But yeah, don't dismiss the bread. It is good and it is usable. So you've got the sausages and you've got the toad in the hole. Now the toad in the hole, basically quite simple. Cook the sausages in the onions. Made a quick Yorkshire batter. And then baked it in the oven. Okay, now this is all for you guys to try as well. I've made some lovely gravy. But the curveball, I'm going to focus on the curveball. A lot of the time with the community fridge, you're given ingredients that aren't, what's the word I'm looking for? That are random. Asparagus isn't random. Asparagus is, everybody knows what to do with asparagus. Spring onions, a lot of people turn around and just chop them up, sprinkle them in salads. We like roasting them across the road because they then go into a really nice salad. And these little bad boys, radishes. Who likes radishes? I have a love-hate relationship with these. You'll either absolutely love them or absolutely hate them.
Yeah.
But around this time of year, you get a lot of them because everybody's got a random radish plant growing in their garden. So we chop them in quarters and roast them in the oven. Has the taste and the texture of an apple. Okay, and just a simple quick salad idea. Get your roasted spring onions and just chop them into smaller, manageable pieces. The asparagus, again. Now asparagus you can blanch it. I find when you blanch it you lose a lot of the flavour and the taste because it disappears in the water. Try roasting it raw and then using it. So that on its own, get one of these rolls, toast the roll, fry an egg, the asparagus, a little bit of extra virgin olive oil and a squeeze of lemon juice, and you've got a simple brunch that would stand up to any of the posh cafes that are going to charge you 13 quid for something like that. It's about sort of thinking outside the box. So I've just literally roasted them. Everything went in the oven at the same time and I left it in there for 8 minutes exactly at 180 degrees. Tofu. You're either going to love this or you're going to absolutely hate it. So what I'm going to do with this salad here, I'm going to leave it completely plant-based, so there's no animal products in it whatsoever. Put the radishes in.
What did you say here? Put some radishes in.
The radishes, believe it or not, once you roast them, they actually taste really, really nice. They don't taste as they do in their raw state. Like I said, they do take on an apple-esque flavour. Just put that in the bowl. Now, dressing a salad's important.
Did you do anything to the tofu?
No, I literally pulled it out of the pack, and that's the pack there. I just brought the packs along. Stupid spelling. I don't know why they just didn't call it by its proper name. It says on the pack you can either fry it or bake it in the oven. Had I known, I would have basically tossed it in the pan with the rest of the vegetables and done it that way. But I just decided to pan fry it real quickly. It's very deceiving. It looks like halloumi. It tastes nothing like it. It looks like feta. It tastes nothing like it. However, with the additions that I'm going to put in there, you should end up with a very nice and viable sort of salad. But all I did was open the packet, drain the excess liquid, and pan fry it, and now it's ended up here. And to this, I'm going to simply add, so we do our own garlic mayonnaise across the road. It comes out.
Very thick.
You don't need a lot of mayonnaise. Mayonnaise can be sort of, I don't know,
Overpowered.
too much is, then all you taste is the mayonnaise, but if you've got just enough, it'll be perfect.
Coating.
Squirt of hot sauce, okay? You're not going to put too much in there that it burns the roof of your mouth off, but just a little bit to sort of bring everything together. Because remember, the asparagus is very delicate, the spring onions are very delicate. And just mix that all together. Now we use, our mayonnaise across the road that we use is plant-based. In other words, it's vegan. So that whole dish there, apart from those two ingredients, was made from that fridge this morning. And just to put it in a... So that would feed 2 people comfortably. Again, I'll go back to the bread. Toast your baguette up. You can, if you want to get fancy, you can cut that in half, drizzle some oil, rub some garlic into it, bake it in the oven, and marry it together. It's not a raw salad, but when you try it, you'll understand and appreciate where I'm going with this. The raw radish tastes completely different. By cooking it, you're changing the structure, you're changing the taste, and it's effectively turned it into a really nice, more edible than it is before. We did a salad last year. Mick had mountains of radishes left over. There was celery, there was radishes, there was apples. So we turned it into a Waldorf salad. Now I put it across the road and they refer to it as the free shit salad because it was, pardon my French, because it was all the stuff that we got from the community fridge. And the staff are going, you can't call it that and you can't charge money. I said, well, no, I'm not charging. The money's covering the cost of all the other things. At the end of the day, we haven't wasted anything. And I've cooked it, turned it into something amazing. But had I not been there, that would have either gone to chicken food or to pig food. So I don't mind doing that. And then what I actually did, the second time I made the salad, I documented it, put it up on Instagram, so then people could actually see. And it's about educating people. I know free shit doesn't sound nice, but that's what it is. Effectively, all this stuff here that you've got in front of you is stuff that the supermarkets have over-ordered. They don't have a use for it, apart from going straight into a bin. Mick and these guys have turned around and are able to capture it and pass it on to people like us. So then it's the simple things and then what you do with that. So that, I can assure you, you'd find in a decent pub, straight off the bat. That's another one you'd find in a decent pub or a Sunday lunch menu. That you'd find in a fancy cafe, maybe one across the road. Probably swears a lot. And that you'd find at a kid's party or just what have you got in the fridge. And the reason I stuck to this was because, and discussing it with Alison, as parents or as grandparents, you're going to walk into the cupboard, open the cupboard, what have you got in there? And today, that's what we had, hence why I went down that road. I didn't want to turn around and say to Mick, oh, make sure there's this or make sure there's that. Because by doing that, you're falsifying the information. Whereas by opening the cupboard and going, right, what was in there today? And I didn't want to be greedy and I didn't want to take everything out of there. There was leeks in there. There was a mountain of stuff you could do with the leeks. Is that open, by the way?
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you want to grab some stuff for me now?
And leeks are expensive at the moment.
Everything's expensive.
Yeah.
Especially tomatoes. I used to be able to get tomatoes from down Border-esque, tomatoes on the borders, last year for £6. Now I'm paying $12.50 for the same box of tomatoes. And that's me, that's not you guys, but what you guys pay is actually more than that.
Yeah.
What you got, Mick?
It's got some leeks.
So in Australia we would call that a Swede. In this country you call it a turnip. Strange people. Turnips do not look like that. But see that? Peel it. Okay. Carrots. Grate the carrots. Grate the Swede. Put in a bowl. Olive oil, pinch of cinnamon, some salt, and a hint of lemon juice. Mix it together. and you've got a really nice raw salad. Okay? Now, everybody would have turned around and said, I put that with that and turned it into soup. Yeah? Okay? These, same scenario as the shallots, or the spring onions. Again, you can roast them. Yes, they do make a really nice soup. You can ferment them. That's getting super technical and very fancy. But do me a favour, if you ever see that and some carrots, get them, grate them, put them together. Some cinnamon. You can put a bit of honey in there as well to have a little bit of sweetness. Because that is quite sort of, what's the word? It is very radishy because it's part of the same family as the radishes. Put it together and you've got a super nice salad. But people wouldn't think of that. So it is a case of, don't be dismissive of the fridge, because at the end of the day, when you look in there, it's like, well, what have you got? Potatoes, everybody knows what to do with potatoes. There's so many variations. You can roast them, you can mash them, you can dwarf them. Well, it depends on how big a budget you have. I did an event on Saturday night where I just literally quartered them. Oil, salt, in the oven, splash of water, and roasted them, and then we served it underneath the cod that I mentioned earlier with the herb crust. It was very, very nice. So what I'm going to ask you to do is to just jump up, try this stuff, because see, at the end of the day, there's no point in me waffling on. If you don't try it, then you won't understand. I brought some plates, there's some cutlery there, and some napkins there. I even made gravy. Go for it.
I'm only taking bags. I'm not taking
Just some cinnamon, oil, lemon juice, and a spoon of honey just to balance things. Food parcel is grim. It's an amazing thing, but when you actually break it down and you're sitting there, now I'm a chef and I'm sitting there going, right, what am I going to do here? There was about half a dozen snacky things like sort of mug shots and cup of soups and stuff like that. But then everything else was literally in a tin form. So you then got to I put my chef hat on and I thought, right, how can we break this down? Now, it gets easier when you can marry it to the likes of this, because it means then you've got your staples, and then you can come here and possibly maybe chance some sausages or chance some stew, some chicken, some fish, which then expands on the thing. Eggs, I find a tricky one, but at the end of the day, like I'm charging I think $2.50 for half a dozen eggs, but they're from Netherlands, so I know where they've come from. They're literally a mile away from my doorstep, so I'm keeping it as local as possible. There's so much more that you can do just by adding a simple egg, and an egg's an amazing source of protein. But it's about, don't be daunted by it. It's like, break it down, because when you look at the parcel, and the parcel that we got that day, and Les was there, so he witnessed it, it was the smaller of the parcels. And it's like, it's not that it's scary, but it is quite daunting. And I even got creative. I turned a tin of soup, it was Heinz tomato soup, a tin of hot dogs. I had lasagna sheets, so I made a hot dog lasagna. Tasted amazing. I was laughing at the time when I did it, but it tasted absolutely amazing. But again, it was one of those simple things where you thought, you wouldn't have thought of that on a normal day. So it's about, how do you turn this into something tasty?
How long are these bags that they get supposed to last?
Weekly.
For a week? For a whole week?
It is very tricky, and I mean, hats off to the people that are getting them, but it's about sort of, I don't know, I'm quite anal when it comes to something like that. I looked at it and I thought, right, that's a meal, that's part of a meal. Breakfast cereal, you had basically cornflakes and rolled oats in there, so you could at least have a bowl of cereal every morning. There was one carton of UHT milk that came with it, but that's going to last about 15 minutes. Yeah, especially if you've got children. Yes.
Can I ask you a couple of questions about vegetables?
Yes, go for it.
What is the best cooking techniques for retaining the minerals in vegetables?
Right, so see the minute you boil something,
Yeah.
you lose a bucket load of nutrients straight away because it just gets diffused into the water. Well, that's the theory anyway. And then when you're cooling it down, you're losing more of the nutrients because it's in another load of water. See, with something like that, I tend to roast it because any of the nutrients stay within the vegetable.
How long do you roast them for?
So that whole dish, basically, in that tray, I literally put a packet of radishes, a packet of asparagus, and a bunch of spring onions.
Yeah.
Took the tops of the spring onions, quartered the radishes, and just because it was asparagus tips, I literally just opened the bag, put it on there. I drizzled a bit of oil and a generous pinch of salt, and put it in the oven. The oven was already on at 180 degrees, and they were literally in for 8 minutes.
8 minutes.
Okay. Yeah. And in that 8 minutes, well, you tasted the radish. What did you think of the radish?
Really nice.
Yeah, it's nice.
So you're sitting there going, it shouldn't taste like that, it shouldn't behave like that, but it actually changes the composition of it.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, an okay vegetable becomes an interesting vegetable.
Yes. Another question is, how do you make your vegetables more tastier? For example, broccoli, how do you make it tastier? I know food's such a subjective subject.
No, you're absolutely right. So, see Brussels sprouts.
Yeah.
I hate them with a vengeance. I think they're the most disgusting thing the big guys ever, the big guy put on the earth. However, and this is where it's about being, how do you make it tasty?
Make it tastier, yeah.
So, if you've got a George Foreman grill at home, or one of those sandwich presses. Now, I started mucking around with one because I bought one for the shop, but it was too much of a, more like for a large family, I should say. And our toaster packed it in. So brought it out and started using it to toast bread. Amazing. Does a better job than it does in a toaster because it toasts the whole lot of it.
Yeah.
I started putting tender stem broccoli in there. No oil, nothing. Literally just putting your tender stem broccoli in there.
Just roasted it?
Sorry, yeah, roasting it in the toasting.
Right.
The minute it was coming out, just literally sprinkle of oil, pinch of salt. Again, if you've got lemon juice or even squeezy lemon juice, so you're not having to waste lemon.
What sort of oil is it? Virgin oil?
Just extra virgin olive oil.
Extra virgin oil, yeah.
Okay, and because it's really, really nice. It's a really nice finishing oil.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more nutrients in it.
So that's oil,
Lemon and salt, and that was it.
Right.
Keep it simple, and by roasting them, all of a sudden, it's taken that simple vegetable to the next level. Now, the problem with boiling it, you lose all the nutrients.
Right.
So here's another technique that I started doing at home. My kids have caught onto it, and they kind of like it as well. The tender stem broccoli, as it comes in its packet, okay, open the microwave, fire it into the microwave, 2.5 minutes, walk away. The minute you come back and it's gone beep, the bag's inflated because it's obviously steamed in its own juices.
Yes.
Tear it open and just literally drizzle some oil and a pinch of salt. Give it a ruffle, and we don't even bother. We're so ghetto, we don't even take it out of the packet. We just plonk it in the middle of the dining table, and the kids are eating the broccoli.
Right.
It's about not being afraid and taking like what you would normally dismiss as a cookery technique.
Yes.
And being able to turn it into a good. I don't have a microwave at the shop. I detest. But see, for something like that 2.5 minutes is the saving grace. It's the difference between the kids having vegetables with their meal or not having vegetables with their meal.
Finally, I want to say a question. Could use it for any vegetable. That technique of olive
Can I
oil.
just jump in?
Yep.
I did not eat asparagus. I hate asparagus with a passion. I spoke to Theo about a month ago, didn't I?
Yeah.
And he told me the George Foreman trick. I've had asparagus at least twice a week since then. It's absolutely lovely.
Yeah, but it's still.
So I wouldn't use it for carrots, and I wouldn't use the microwave technique for potatoes. But see anything green, that works really well. Either just quickly, like see the broccoli, that works. 2.5 minutes in the bag. Literally, do not do anything. Put it in the microwave. 2.5 minutes. As it goes ding, the bag's inflated. You literally tear it open, and it's cooked perfectly.
Right.
And because you haven't had to have a pot of water on, so you've got to think, do I really want to get water that I'm paying for? Electricity to bring the water to the boil, which is not going to boil in 2.5 minutes, I can assure you that.
So is that steaming at the window then?
Yeah.
Right, so we're talking about roasting,
Yeah.
not steaming.
And then steaming it as
You're
well.
effectively steaming it in
Yeah.
the microwave. Can you do that with cauliflower as well, or is it
You
too
could do it
hard?
with cauliflower, you could do it with, see when you get the bags with the cauliflower
Yeah.
florets and the broccoli
Yeah.
florets? Yeah. It's about keeping it simple because
Right.
until you crack into it, and don't do it like 7 minutes before you're ready to eat. Literally, as they're setting the table, that goes in 2.5 minutes later, tear it open, bit of oil, bit of salt. Look, you can omit the oil and you can omit the salt. That little bit of oil and that little bit of salt costs nothing, but makes the difference between tasting nice and tasting bland.
Can you put pepper in it or any
Absolutely,
spices?
yeah. Good time. I just don't use pepper
Right.
in the house.
Okay, that's fine. Appreciate that.
No, absolutely. But it's about, see, for me, I look at a fridge and I go, right, what can we do with that? And it's about not wasting anything.
Yeah.
Because the more that you waste, the more money that it costs.
Yes.
And it's about being efficient.
Yeah.
And so when we shot the video for Loaves and Fishes, one of the things that I did do, she'd actually given me a big bag of pasta, so there was a kilo bag of pasta. Instead of cooking it in 2 different lots, I cooked the pasta in one go, and then divided it and made 2 meals from that. One which went into a tray, some sprinkled cheese, and made a pasta bake that sat in the back of the fridge. And in 3 days' time, you come home from work, what are we having for dinner? Take tray, oven, 20 minutes later, happy days. And the other one you were ready to eat straight away.
Right. Okay.
So it's about utilising your things, because the cost of electricity is a nightmare at the moment. So why would I boil pasta twice, or why would I put water on to boil for asparagus? Now my ovens are super efficient at the shop, and they do heat up quite quickly. Within 5 minutes, they're ready to go.
Right.
And that's the trick, making sure that your ovens reach the temperature before you put anything in there. Because if you don't, then it just destroys it, because it's still heating up. So heat it up and then do what you have to do. Using tinned vegetables, which it hurts as a chef, being able to cook beautiful things, but it's what you did with them.
Did you make your own gravy, or did you buy it?
No, just literally, there's no point, because see, to make your own gravy, you need to spend hours and stuff like that. Have a jar of Bisto, or a tub of Bisto sitting in the back of the cupboard.
Or any other.
Yes, doesn't have to.
Of course.
But it's just one of those things, because it is so versatile, and like literally that goes well with that, goes well with that. I suppose you could ruin the baked beans and sausages, put it on top of that, or you could just grab your stale bread and dip it into it.
Can I just ask, is it difficult to ferment the leeks? Because
No,
fermented food's supposed to be very good for
It
your
is.
gut.
yes, big time.
So what would you do?
So the leeks, I saw a YouTube video yesterday, the guy basically got 4 leeks, rinsed them off, and basically weighed the jar, weighed the leeks, and weighed the water, and then it was a percentage that he gave. I think it ended up being about 4 grams of salt that he put in there. He took the rubber seal off the kilner jar, because if he'd left it on there, it would have bubbled and exploded.
Yeah.
But by removing the seal, and basically over the next 7 days, he just tilled it with a spoon and just checked it, and it started to ferment. At which point he kept the water, did something else with the water, boiled the leeks in cream and made a really nice leek cream. But I thought it was simple. There was leeks in there, and I was like half tempted to do it, but I thought, no, that's just gonna.
It's quite a good way to make those leeks last till the end of the week,
Yes.
because they're spending 2 or 3 days fermenting.
I mean, one of the things that we do, and we do quite a lot, is when we get chicken. So tomorrow I've got 5 kilos of chicken coming in. So we'll get it, process it. It's already ready to go, I should say. So we cook it off. I've then got a vac pack machine which removes all the oxygen from it, and we pack it into smaller bags and then put it in the freezer. So because you're using a raw product, the environmental health go crazy when you start mixing. So we'll make sure that all the raw stuff gets done at the end of the day and done in this way. So then we're not having to muck around with it later on in the week. And it's simple things like that, where you're taking it out of the freezer, you thaw it in the fridge overnight, the next day you've got cooked chicken ready to go. And you can do the same thing with cling film or Ziploc bags. Just put your Ziploc bag, submerge it into water, takes all the air out of it, seal it, fire it in the freezer.
But from that food parcel with Loaves and Fishes, we produced 6 videos?
Yes,
So
7 actually.
There's 7 videos on the Discover Strathaven Facebook page, which each video is a different recipe. And the first video is actually just summarising, here's what you can do, this is how you produce a meal plan. And so that's all there on the Discover Strathaven, and we'll take this and do something similar.
Have you got a DVD of it?
No.
It's not
No,
impossible.
just have no the internet.
Right. It's not impossible. We could make up DVDs and leave them in the shop.
So that's us for today. We've run out of time. Climate Action Strathaven team and trustees would love to thank A, the volunteers, because without them the community fridge wouldn't be open. B, Mick, who manages this project, the community fridge project, for all his hard work every day managing the volunteers and just the space in the hub. And Theo from Roasted for doing the cooking demonstration this morning. Big round of applause for them all.
Fine, Les, for shooting it.
Yeah.